what do we have here? What do we have here? NPR getting defunded, and I think also PBS is getting defunded. Yep, they decided to fucking follow through with their defunding of public media, and I guess also foreign aid as well. So rolling back $9 billion and well, stuff like that, because again, like generally speaking, the people who serve like rural communities, because again, the people that are good that are going to get most affected by this are Republican supporters. Like disaster relief stuff goes through public media, not disaster relief, but like warnings and stuff like that goes through public media, because private entities are not going to serve those like not underdeveloped but underpopulated areas, because there's like not much of a profit incentive in order to sort of like, well, go out there and serve those people. So again, public media is meant to sort of like pick up the gaps there, like and it's not even just like potential disaster warning stuff that's also going to happen, be affected by this, but also like broader like educational sort of stuff as well is also going to be, broadly speaking, affected by the cuts in public, well, media funding, because they're not going to serve in underserved communities. Because again, let's be honest here, the modus operandi of the conservatives is to keep their population as undereducated as possible in order to have them keep voting conservative. To be undereducated is to be conservative. That's not like hyperbole. There's a reason why, like, mostly like lumpen proletariat are the ones who end up constantly voting for far right candidates constantly, because again, to have an understanding of like I don't know, like most left wing principle, like it helps to be like slightly educated. But what do we got here? So yeah, it's a rollback of $9 billion. Cool, great. So the House has approved the Trump administration plan to rescind $9 billion in previously allocated funds. Oh, right, yeah. This was also funds that have been currently allocated, which can set potentially interesting precedents, right? About like money that has already been sort of delineated for a particular cause. So that's cool. That's great. Fantastic. Because like again, if someone else were to come into power and just be like, well, that one dumbass thing that Republicans decided to get funding for, actually no, we're just gonna get rid of that and just keep like randomly just defunding stuff that has already been funded. Like, that's cool. That's great. This is a potential precedent that's being sort of set here. Very good. Including $1.1 billion for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a move that cuts all federal support for NPR, PBS, and their member stations, and about $7 billion in foreign aid. Very, very cool. I think they already have, like donation links and stuff like that, and that they're already like semi-fucking private and stuff like that. But again, like I said before, who is this going to like mostly be affected? It's going to be fucking rural people that are going to be affected the most. People who vote Republican, yet again, are going to be the most affected by fucking shit like this, because not a lot of money to be made out there in the fucking boonies of like Kentucky or South Carolina, to be quite honest, in terms of like listeners in order to make money from public fucking broadcasting. Like, that's the main problem here. Whoa, Republicans fell for it again award. Who would have thought? The vote of 216 to 213 included all but two Republicans in favor of the cuts. The bill goes next to President Trump for his signature. Immediately after the vote, NPR CEO Catherine Marr issued a statement calling the cut an irreversible loss to the public radio system. She said the effect would be an unwarranted dismantling of our beloved local civic institutions and an act of Congress that disregards the public will. Is NPR and PBS, broadly speaking, popular within the United States? Approval of NPR and PBS. Is it? I believe so. PBS probably more so, because again, our most popular media outlet here in fucking Canada is the CBC, our public, well, news media. Why? Because they do very good investigative journalism, looking into topics and issues that, well, a lot of other sort of like private journalistic outlets won't look into, because again, if they do look into those things, into corporations doing price gouging, again, the reason why we know about like corporations price gouging us, specifically grocery chains doing that, is thanks to reporting from the CBC. This is in Canada, and broadly speaking, that's a reason why they're really, really popular. Like, we would not have known about this because, again, a lot of like private media corporations and institutions are not going to look into stuff like that because it could potentially cut into their profits due to the fact that, well, they probably would get a lot of sponsor money from those particular sort of corporations, and they want to have access to be able to do stories into those particular areas. And that stuff can get cut off, quite literally, saying like, oh, you can't film anything that's going on here because of this investigative reporting that you're doing. So, get owned, I guess. Public funding has enabled the flourishing of a uniquely American system of unparalleled culture, informational, and educational programming, and ensured access to vital emergency alerting and reporting in times of crisis. Yeah, this is the main fucking thing. One of the main things that's going to happen, especially in like rural areas where emergencies are going to get worse and worse and worse. So, yeah, they don't get it's like a pretty decent chunk from what I understand, but it's not going to be completely over for them, but they're now a completely like privatized institution. They're not going to be able to serve those like rural areas as well because why would they? They can't make a profit from it. All for about $1.60 per American every year. Parents and children, seniors and students, tribal and rural communities all will bear the harm of this vote, Marr said. North Carolina Representative Alma Adams was among the Democrats who rose to defend public broadcasting. When Hurricane Helene devastated western North Carolina last year, public broadcasting was there when traditional communications failed, she said. Widespread power, cellular, and internet outages meant that for thousands of North Carolinians, public radio was how they received their news. And that's the sort of problem here, right? Like, again, who are the people that are mostly going to suffer here? It's going to be rural voters not being able to get information, right? And this is also emblematic of the fucking Texas floods, quite literally. If you lose hours, minutes even, people are going to die, right? And we all know about like the stupid shit that Kristi Noem is doing specifically with like FEMA funds, saying that she has to sign off on everything that costs over $100,000. Completely insane, by the way. The only purpose of that is to just slow down the processes and approval ratings, or not approval ratings, but approval systems within FEMA in order to make it, well, such that people have to rely more and more on like private corporations and institutions to try to, bail them out of disaster situations and potentially like go into debt for shit like that. Because again, the Republicans, they don't give a shit about any of you people. They just want you all to suffer and die in pain. That's all that they want, fundamentally speaking. Or to just be good little fucking worker bees, compliant with the system of control that currently exists. Like, that's the main fucking issue here. The people who are going to suffer the most are going to be the Republican voters that I am talking about here. Rural voters are the primary people that they're going to make, that are going to suffer from stuff like this. But again, it's just a criminal amount of undereducation with these people that they don't fucking understand any of this stuff. It's just fucking sad. The House moves follows a vote-a-rama late Wednesday and into early Thursday in the Senate to consider a series of amendments to the recession package. From what I understand, everyone's been getting fucking pissed with all these fucking vote-a-rama bullshits because again, it doesn't give people time to sort of assess and follow and understand what's going on with a particular bill to say whether this is a good or a fucking bad thing. It's just a complete shit show. All but one of which failed on largely party-line votes. Republicans reportedly voted to block changes to President Trump's request, known as a recession. The single amendment that passed was aimed at protecting PEPFAR, the U.S. AIDS relief initiative created under George W. Bush. Wow, they even wanted to go after stuff from George W. Bush. Damn. So much for that supposed Republican fucking solidarity. I guess they're okay with AIDS in Africa or something. Who the fuck knows, to be honest. The House vote on Thursday means CBP will lose $1.1 billion meant to fund it through the next 2 years. While the bill also cuts $7.9 billion in other programs, CBP acts as a conduit for federal money to NPR, PBS, and their member stations. Although NPR, which produces news programs such as Morning Edition and All Things Considered, relies on direct federal funds for only a small portion of its budget, its approximately 1,000 member station gets a heftier portion of their operating revenue through CBP. And they're going to start fucking cutting these things. And where do most of these member stations probably operate? In more out there rural fucking communities. Because, like, they're not going to put other stations in there. Because just, like, again, there's no, like, profit incentive for them to want to fucking do that. Because they won't make that much money from, like, I don't know, the maybe 1 or 2 listeners they're going to get in terms of, like, rural areas. And like I said before, they're the ones who are going to suffer the most from this. They're the ones who are going to not get as well educated and shit like this in terms of, like, particular programs and not be aware of, like, potential tornadoes that happen, floods that happen, flash storms or something, like in the winter or some shit. They're the ones who are going to suffer from this in particular. And, like, again, like I said with the example of the Texas floods, you fucking cut off, like, all the public funding of stuff like this. It's going to only get worse, right? They got lucky with the Texas floods this time that it could not have been as potentially disastrous as it is. But eventually, it'll get to a fucking breaking point, and a lot more people are going to die as a result. The network has warned that many of those stations, especially those broadcasting to rural areas or to underserved audiences, such as Native Americans, could be forced to shut down as a result of the funding rollback. South Dakota Republican Senator Mike Rounds announced earlier this week that he had struck a deal to use money allocated during the Biden administration to continue funding 28 stations serving Native American listeners in 9 states. However, Native Public Media President and CEO Loris Taylor called the compromise structurally impractical in a letter to Rounds. PBS CEO and President Paula Kruger said Thursday that the move to cut public broadcasting goes against the will of the American people, the vast majority of whom trust PBS and believe we provide excellent value to their communities. Yeah, unfortunately, Republicans want to do everything possible to make, like, all sort of, like, institutions that are publicly funded and federally administered as ridiculously ineffective as possible, because, again, they want to make it such that everything is sort of privatized as much as possible for the billionaires and the CEOs to, well, maintain that system of hierarchy and control. Because the Republican politicians know that they're going to be the ones who benefit the most from that stuff. Until they're going to also get cut out by those exact same fucking people, once their usefulness becomes outlived. While its nightly PBS NewsHour and children's programming, such as Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, PBS gets around 15% of their revenue through CBP. These cuts will significantly impact all of our stations, but will be especially devastating to smaller stations and those serving large rural areas, Kruger said. Many of our stations, which provide access to free, unique local programming and emergency alerts, will now be forced to make hard decisions in the weeks and months ahead. It's the exact same stuff with the rural hospitals, the Medicare cuts and the Medicaid cuts that are happening in the fucking goddamn great big beautiful bill, folks. It's the most beautiful, most fantastic bill. Same stuff. Rural hospitals gonna have to fucking cut their funding. Because not only Medicaid's getting cut, Medicaid is getting specifically cut, but also Medicare is getting cut because it triggers a bunch of pay-go provisions because they're not able to fucking pay for this bill. A bit of a very, like, sleight of hand there specifically by the Republicans to go after, well, essentially 2 birds with 1 stone. A Harris poll last week found that 66% of Americans support federal funding for public radio. Well, in terms of that sort of, like, approval rating question there, that answers that question I had before, with the same share calling it a good value. Support included 58% of Republicans and 77% of Democrats. The online poll surveyed 2,089 U.S. adults with a 2.5% margin of error. Damn, seems like public radio is a broadly popular, bipartisan sort of thing. Similar to Canada, by the way, with, like, a lot of liberals, like NDP, stuff like that. Like, we like our public broadcasting corporation. Like, we think it's fucking great. Same with the fucking Americans. I guess the sort of like, I don't know, spirit of like the public good and service is still not, I guess, 100% dead within the American spirit, I suppose. In recent years, NPR has landed increasingly in the crosshairs of conservatives, who have accused the network of left-wing political bias and woke programming, which is nonsense, but, you know, reality is left-leaning and woke to these fucking people. There's no point in fucking arguing about this. They just hate they just don't live within reality, which has a liberal fucking bias. Like, sucks to suck, I guess. The publication last year of an essay authored by then NPR business editor Yuri Berliner, critical of the network's coverage, only reinforced the notion, providing ammunition to NPR's detractors. Very, very cool. In the piece published by the Free Press, an online site embraced by journalists who believe the mainstream media is too liberal. So fucking stupid, dude. Berliner argued that an NPR drive for greater diversity in its workforce had actively narrowed the network's viewpoint. Yeah, man, it's totally because of woke DEI policies and programs at NPR that made it such that they do terrible reporting now. I mean, like, listen, out of touch, like, not in reality, complete fucking stupid dipshits. And, well, the dude fucking resigned from NPR as a result of that. Well, who would have thought that this fucking schizo fucking freak decides to I don't know, push forward and have a hand to play in the further defunding of fucking NPR. Fantastic. Shortly after the piece was published, Berliner was suspended and later resigned and became a contributing editor for the Free Press. Isn't the Free Press like Barry Weiss's fucking outlet or some shit? It's like a complete just fucking conservative rag. It's just like stupid dog shit, basically. I'm curious, right? The Free Press. Yes. Founded by fucking Barry Weiss. Yeah, that fucking stupid freak, Barry Weiss. NPR's chief news executive, Edith Chapin, responded to Berliner's essay by saying the network covers a wide range of challenging stories and that inclusion among its staff and sourcing is critical to ensure nuanced stories of this country and our world. Yeah, who would have thought that you need like people of a lot of different racial backgrounds in order to be able to have a really good idea in terms of like coverage for those very specific issues that those communities sort of may particularly have. But again, I don't know. Berliner here might be just okay with like a white ethno state or something. Just thinks like they're all just like stupid, dirty browns and blacks, and they shouldn't have any media representation. Like fuck them, kind of a deal, you know. On Thursday, Nevada Republican Representative Mark Amodei echoed remarks made by Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski this week about the need for lawmakers to protect local stations while acknowledging conservatives' anger at NPR and PBS. Okay, but the thing is, it's just stupid. It's just like fucking dumb, idiotic nonsense. The dumbest shit on the fucking planet. Saying like that NPR is being way too woke in terms of like its diversity and inclusion because of the fact that yeah, we kind of need people with like differing perspectives and backgrounds if we want to be able to do like good reporting on those particular issues. If you're mad at the editorial people, that's fine, but you shouldn't be mad at the stations, he said, speaking to reporters Thursday. And oh, by the way, you ought to look at where those stations are because there's a lot of a Trump country, and they're not the problem. And so cutting them off of funds doesn't seem very well thought out. I guess couldn't have said it better myself. Democrats and Republicans alike have also raised concerns about the recession process, a rare move that hasn't been attempted in a quarter century. The lawmakers said recession would make it harder for lawmakers to pass future appropriations bills to fund the government ahead of the September 30th deadline. You know what? Like, honestly, at this point, make, like, a big fucking stink about it, right? Fuck it. Who cares? Like, if Democrats want to have, like, a potential way to sort of, like, exercise power, make a fucking big stink about it. Get some fucking priorities done at this point. Make a show. Threaten to shut down the government. It would be a fucking popular move and would make you guys look really good and actually, like, you're fucking doing something. Because, I mean, if you keep letting the fucking Republicans run roughshod on you, Whoa, 17% approval rating. Do nothing, get aroused. Chuck Schumer is only going to make himself look worse and worse and worse. So, that's cool. The only way we can fund the government is to get at least 7 Democrats to vote with us at the end of September 30th, or we go into a shutdown. Senator Tom Tillis from North Carolina said on the Senate floor Wednesday, "If I'm a Democrat and you're trying to get me to vote and get to a 60 vote threshold to fund the government, and you've betrayed a prior agreement and a prior appropriation, what are the likelihood that you're going to do that?" That's actually a pretty decent point by Tom Tillis. Like, are the Democrats going to want to agree with any of the fucking Republicans' bullshit? But listen, knowing fucking this dumbass Chuck Schumer, the one time he could have prevented, like, a reconciliation bill from not going fucking through, he decided to whip votes to stop that and let that fucking bill go through. So, who the fuck knows with this, like, dumbass fucking Chuck Schumer, right? Like, this stupid charlatan, this Democrat in name only. Dino, instead of the rhino. This is fucking dino. Basically making it such that, like, we have to make the Baileys told me that we have to keep the government open because the government can't be shut down. That's what the Baileys are telling me. In a letter to Senate Democrats this month, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer of New York called the rescissions package an affront to the bipartisan appropriations process. Sure, whatever. That's why a number of Senate Republicans know it's absurd for them to expect Democrats to act as business as usual and engage in a bipartisan appropriations process to fund the government, while they concurrently plot to pass a purely partisan rescissions bill to defund those same programs, negotiated on a bipartisan basis behind the scenes, Schumer wrote. Sure, man. Whatever. What's the fucking likelihood he's gonna fucking cave and just, like, let whatever dog shit that the fucking Republicans decide to gin up go through eventually? Who the fuck knows? Ahead of Thursday's expected House vote, Office of Management and Budget Director Russell Vought told reporters that the administration will likely send another rescissions package to Capitol Hill soon. Who would have thought that they're just gonna fucking keep doing this shit, like, because again, like, fuck you, suffer or die. Who the fuck cares about any of this stuff? Time to see, like, whatever fucking wretched horrid shit gets fucking cut in this particular package. There's still a great enthusiasm for these rescissions bills. Yeah, but 66% approval rating for fucking NPR and stuff like that. Are you sure about that? Because Congress wants to be a part of voting for these cuts and make them permanent. Vought said at a breakfast hosted by the Christian Science Monitor. Yeah, just Jesus Christ, dude. Meanwhile, Representative Don Bacon from Nebraska called the Senate's version of the bill better than one we sent over because it removed $400 million worth of cuts to PEPFAR. Bacon, an initial Republican holdout who flipped his vote to support the package last month, said House Speaker Mike Johnson had given him assurances that local public TV stations will be funded in future appropriation sessions. What if they're just lying, Like, I know that, like, Republican representatives are, like, sniffling loser fucking cowards, don't have a backbone, and will just, like, some sweet nothings get, like, whispered in their fucking ears, and they just go along with, like, whatever dumbass bullshit their fucking party says. Like, they don't give a fuck about any of this stuff. Like, again, point is pretty fucking simple. They just want people to suffer and die. They don't give a fuck about you. They've never given a shit about any of the stuff that, like, the broader American public have think is popular or ever like at all. I sat down, I said I will vote for it if you can assure me that PBS will get funded this coming cycle, and they huddled up and they came back and said yes. I take the speaker at his word. Sure, man. He added that he hasn't had additional conversations with Johnson about how that would work. I wonder why he didn't do that. Clueless. So, as expected of the Republican Party, the only reason that they're doing this stuff is because they want their already undereducated voters to stay as undereducated as possible, to have them continue to, keep sort of voting for Republican, because, again, those who are educated, generally speaking, are not going to want to vote conservative. Let's be fucking honest here. They're not gonna. And again, with NPR being defunded like this, they're going to have to shut down stations that they funded through that public funding. And now disaster warnings and relief is going to be harder for people to get like communicated out in Trump country, as like even a fucking Republican representative himself said, saying like, yeah, it's Trump country that's going to suffer the most from this stuff. Because again, why would a private corporation want to set up stations in those rural parts of the country? There's no money to be fucking made there. Like, why the fuck would they do that? They're never gonna fucking do that. Like, get the hell out of here with this bullshit. So, as expected from, like, I don't know, Republican voters, they fell for it again, as always. And the Republicans, well, have never had your best interests at heart. And they are just okay with you suffering and dying. They don't give a shit about any of this stuff, you know? The suffering is the point, quite literally. I don't think it's, like, ridiculous or hyperbolic to really fucking say that in particular. Like, these people have never really given a shit about their constituencies and their voters. Like, they'll like pretend to like go along with their like I don't know, like stupid bullshit to just like appease them, but in reality, like if people can like just suffer for their actions and take I don't know, not responsibility, that's not the correct word, but like suffer for the consequences of their actions. Yeah, you know, Republicans are totally okay with like making people suffer. They've never given a fuck about any of this stuff. So, you know, I don't know, fell for it again award for the Republican voter, as always. Like, the extremely obvious thing that was always obvious happened. Republicans just want to make the sort of, like, annals of government as ridiculously ineffective as fucking possible for the express purpose of, well, furthering more and more control within the hands of corporations and the billionaires. That's the entirety of the point of all this. Because again, if you are undereducated, it's going to be way easier for these people to trick you in order to support, well, more privatization of stuff like, you know, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and overall just make your life fucking worse. Don't really think there's much else to say besides that.